Welcome everyone to PyLadies. We have two of our speakers here, Rigel and Natalia, and and our third speaker will be joining us momentarily. And we have Leigh as well, who's my co-organizer this evening. This was meant to be streamed live, so I will sort that out after my announcements. So people feel free to on chat just to introduce yourselves as well. I'm going to share my screen and we can get started on this, and we can go to the talks. Or let me contact Leigh right now. Leigh. So let me also.
The adrenaline of doing it live, Vicky, isn't it?
Yeah, so last week was first time on a different platform, so this is fantastic. And this is live on a different platform again, and it is not going according to plan. Can't go live. Sorry, typing here. Account not allowed yet. Not approved. Yes. Okay, so righto. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and we'll get cracking. Share the screen with the right window on it. Share. Can people see this? Okay, because I can't see what you're seeing. Can people see the PyLadies virtual event? Yes. Okay. So welcome to PyLadies, our second virtual event this evening. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly and get started on the talks. If this will scroll, please scroll. Oh my goodness, what is going on? Okay, it doesn't seem to want to scroll now. Okay. I want to say a big thank you to Python Ireland for hosting us on Zoom this evening. And also a shout out to Dublin Maker, who is our community partner as well. Our first talk will be cross-platform games with Kivy with Rigel, and followed by our second lightning talk, Python Load Balancer by Natalia, and then our third speaker, neural networks using genetic algorithm by Ajinkya. I hope I pronounced his name right. So the agenda is, I'll do the welcome now, which is we're on time. I won't spend the whole 10 minutes, so that means we'll give so the talks hopefully will start a bit earlier, and we'll have a bit more time at the end for Q&A. And some announcements. If you're still interested in helping out EuroPython, they're still open for volunteers. If you want to speak at PyLadies or Python Ireland or PyData, do contact the various respective orgs. They're on Meetup as well. But if you want to submit your talk to PyLadies, you can find this link on the Meetup page, this evening's Meetup page. This script pad can also be found on this evening's Meetup page. It's an open collaborative pad. So our next meetup is next month, July 21st. It's going to be another virtual one. We just confirmed the speaker today. So Naomi Freeman, all the way from Norway, will be chatting to us. And some Python-related events that you might be interested in. The PyData Remote Summer Meetup will be on July the 6th. And then there's the regular Python Ireland meetup as well. It's on the second Wednesday, which is Wednesday, July 8th. And then, of course, next month, the biggie, EuroPython is online. And their tickets are there. I think they have released their program and schedule as well. I think they released the posters as well online for you to have a check. So have a look. And there's going to be bigger news being announced as well. So be sure to check their Twitter feed as well, or their tweets. If there's anything else that I'm missing, like any announcements, any events, any opportunities, please feel free to add to this document. It's open to everyone. But aside from that, I think that's all from me. So with the others, so for the other people who are the speakers, do you have anything? I'm going to stop sharing this so I can see if there's anyone else, first third speakers joining. So if there's any kind of announcements from you at all, anything for? Nope. Okay. So I am going to hand it over to you, Rigel, and you can share your screen.
Thank you very much, Vicky. All right, so let me try and see if this is still going to work. So can you see
Yeah,
my screen?
can see your screen.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you, first of all, Vicky, for the opportunity of talking about two of my favorite subjects, actually, which is one is Kivy, the other one is video games. And I'll just give a quick introduction about myself. I am Rigel Di Scala. I work in Milan for Red Hat. And, you know, my passion for computers goes back to really way back. I'm way too old to even use technology at this point. I learned programming on a Commodore VIC-20. That's actually me holding my instruction manual that came with a computer. This is actually something that you don't find with computers anymore, right? It would actually tell you and teach you how to write in BASIC, in that case, and write your own computer programs. So, you know, growing up, I upgraded to a fantastic Commodore Amiga 500 in 1994, which had a thrilling 512 kilobytes of RAM with a super fast, blazingly fast 7 megahertz clock frequency. It was using a Motorola 68000. And I learned programming on a Amiga-specific BASIC clone, which has some optimizations for sprites and blitzing. But, you know, it was quite limited. But it was incredibly fun because you could actually do quite a lot with that kind of very limited, you know, resources. You can see Deluxe Paint, which is a program that you could use to create what today we would call pixel art. And the Pro Tracker, which is a way to compose music using a special kind of notation. It was obviously limited to 4 channels of stereos of 7-bit sound on the Amiga. But that didn't stop me from writing a horrible Tetris clone, which I released. And one day, actually, it was around a few months ago, I was Googling my name on YouTube, as everybody does, obviously. And I found somebody who was bored enough to be actually long playing that obscure Tetris clone that I wrote back in the 90s. That was one of the internet moments of my lifetime. But the thing is that I really missed, until a few years ago, something that replicated that kind of tools that I could use. You know, the fact that I could easily type in a nice programming language and just, you know, be creative just using the computer, and merging these two things like graphics, sound, and all that. And this is why I'd like to talk about Kivy, because Kivy is a framework for developing graphically rich applications in pure Python. So you can, with Kivy, it's very easy to start creating a UI interface and package it and release it for a number of different platforms, including mobile devices. So if anybody comes up to you and says, well, Python is great, but you can't really, you know, create an app. Well, actually you can. Kivy is not the only solution to do that. There are a number of others, but Kivy is actually one of the more mature because the project started way back in 2011 and has been well maintained and improved ever since. So to get started, just pip3 install Kivy, write your main application, which is more or less similar to other kind of graphical user interfaces here. We're creating an app, then we're returning what would be the root widget, which is in this case is a button. And so you can create different screens, different user interfaces by using this very common tree of hierarchical tree of widgets. But it's really nice because it also uses graphical acceleration. So you will use your graphical card, your GPU, to render thanks to its SDL2 backend. It used to use Pygame back in the day, but now it's improved to something much more efficient. And it has its own special DSL, domain-specific language, for creating user interfaces. So you don't have to wrangle too much with Python. You can avoid all that boilerplate code. You can declaratively describe your user interface using this DSL, and then this will automatically render your user interfaces. And obviously, you can create complex menus. You can create multi-screen applications. So for example, you can start with a welcome screen for a game and then move on to other screens. It works really well. For example, for graphical novels. I don't know if you've played those interactive novels that often you can find on that have been released, and they can actually. It's actually very easy to create 2D games just based on this, but it's not limited, obviously, to interactive fiction. But you can obviously actually use Kivy to create some quite fancy games, and very close to what you expect from a professional software house. So it's really good for touch-specific games. So it works very well with mobile devices in this case. And one thing to consider is that it doesn't use the native UI GUI widgets of the platform. But it turns out that it's not really that important for games, because you're not really interested. You would expect that from a utility application, but not for a game. For a game, you would expect it to have its own colorful widgets. So it works quite well. And it also enables type feedback loops. So for example, here I'm switching to PyCharm. Instead of having to redeploy my application to Android, what I can do is I can simply just run it from here. It will instantly make this very simple game appear. I don't know about the audio. You can hear it. Probably not better not to dwell on it too much. But the thing is that you can actually, establish those type feedback loops that you want for game development more than any other kind of application that you would create. So Kivy has been used to write some very, very, very high quality games. I've taken a look recently at the new games that have been released. And for example, there is a very intriguing game about decoding messages using Morse code, for example. And it's also able, holding your mobile device, to use the features such as the microphone to listen for code that's being played back and then interpret it. So it can use, up to a certain point, it can use a lot of the functionality of the mobile devices. It can do that thanks to interoperability with the native language and libraries that the platform is using, such as Android. If you're kind of put off by Kivy's default graphical look and feel, there are some projects that attempt to kind of theme the widgets to actually provide a similar experience to that, for example, of Android, such as this project called KivyMD, which makes your user interface almost indistinguishable from a true Android native application. Kivy is very, very fast. It's written, the high performance parts are written in Python. So if you don't know Python, it's basically a way to write in a superset of Python extensions. So that will be translated into C, compiled into what amounts to essentially a module that then you can import, that export functions and classes, essentially symbols that you can then import and then use and call inside your application. And that performs to near native C performance. Obviously, as I said before, it supports OpenGL, and it's basically an improvement compared to, for example, writing your application using a JavaScript-based framework, using something like Cordova, for example, to leverage cross-platform, but at the same time pay that kind of penalty of running things inside a browser environment. So it works very well for games, obviously, because games typically need that kind of low latency interaction and speed, most importantly. As I was saying before, there is interop with the platform that is running on. In this case, we're talking still about Android, but there's a library that's also available for iOS. In this case, you're also seeing how we're importing Java classes and using those with Python inside Python, essentially. So it can work with basic. I've used it for example, to enable the vibration, to access the camera, and using a lot of features that don't have a specific bindings in Python. So it actually works quite really, really well. If you're looking for something that, for action games that would involve a lot of sprites and a lot of entities moving around, then there is this extension called Kivy that provides exactly that. And it integrates with a physics engine. So, normal modern games would expect some kind of physics to be simulated for added gameplay. So that's also available, and you're not definitely missing out. My favorite feature is support for tracker modules. As I said before, they're actually tracker editors are a really good way to get into music. A lot of artists started with tracker modules. The advantage of using tracker modules for mobile application is that they produce high quality audio with very, very small file size. So ultimately your package will be, if you're looking at the competition, for example, whether they will ship with hundreds of megs of APKs, for example, in case of Android, because they contain so much music, digital music. In that case, you can still have very, very good sounding audio, but with extremely small file size. And Milky Tracker is, for example, the equivalent of a very full-featured open source editor that you can use today. So in conclusions, main advantages: you write everything in real Python. You don't have to mess around with something that looks like Python but that isn't really like Python, like, for example, GBScript in Godot or Boo in, I think, Unity. You can use Python. You can use all the libraries that Python provides, the Python ecosystem provides. It's of course, you save in writing all that boilerplate that you would have in other different libraries, because you can use that DSL, as I was mentioning before, to compose these very complex user interfaces. Performance, small size packages. The application that I showed before comes at around 10 megabytes, so pretty reasonable. And there's plenty of add-ons that you can leverage. Disadvantages, as I mentioned before, no GUI widgets on mobile devices. That can be, that can be a strong minus for certain kinds of applications. 3D is supported, actually. I can show you, for example, a demo of a kind of a Dungeon Master clone. I don't know if you can see my screen, but basically it works quite well, and it works with mobile device tilting also. So, but still, it doesn't really feel like it's really well integrated at this point, but things are improving. And it's mostly Linux centered, so you might need to run a VM on non-Linux hosts to be able to use the toolchain fully. And finally, it's a small but very, very friendly community. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that it's small, but if you need help in implementing one specific thing that goes a little bit out of the main road, then you might have some Googling to do. That's it. So thank you. I'll hand it back over to Vicky.
Great. Thanks, Rigel. So as I said, let's keep the Q&A if there's any. You can type it in the chat anyway, and we'll read through them at the end of all the 3 lightning talks. So now we have Natalia. So Natalia, you can share your screen, and yeah, you can start whenever you're ready.
Share this window. Can you see my screen? It's okay. Okay. Hi. Thank you for this opportunity. And I am Natalia. I'm from Brazil. Now I am living about 6 months here in Dublin. I am a quality engineer at Red Hat, and I am a physicist. I I work with Python about 5 or 6 years about this time. And today I show for us a simple example when I can use the load balancers with Python. My thoughts is very easy and simple for studying or when using big products, for example. Exactly what is a load balancer? Load balancers refers to efficiently distributing incoming network traffic across a group of backend servers, also known as servers farm or server pools. Sorry, my window crazy. And this example, the architecture for the load balancers is devices that. Oh, sorry, in my first time speaking English in the event.
You're good. No worries, you're good.
Okay, is a device that acts as a reverse proxy and distributes networking or application traffic across a number of servers. This example, I have a hardware, I think using, sorry, this have a hardware, and this hardware distribute the hosts, the balancers, yeah, for the users. Example. Load balancers are used to increase the capacity and reliability for applications and improve the overall performance for applications and decreasing the burden on servers associated with managing and maintaining applications network sessions. Um, uh, this is Tornado is a Python web framework and asynchronous networking library for Python, exactly. Original is I don't remember exactly, but it's developed by Friend Fit. It's a group of developers, and using a non-blocking networking in input output. And Tornado can scale to tens of thousands of open connections. Uh, I I believe it is a good framework, good framework for long pooling WebSockets and other applications that require long life connection each other. This have I show for us a simple example. Hello World. This Hello World is heavy in the tornado documentation, and here have the when I imported this library. In this class, I use the method get for write this hello world. This is a result. And yes, and the app listed in the 888 port. And if you need more works or all these ports, this is an example. This example return the basic URL is this. I have the main part. It's just an example. You can use any parts if you can. And here I use the I think is the just problem in Tornado example, because I needed to say for Tornado what the parts I needed to use. And this example, I use the part 111, and I can this my request, return my request. And other example I love more than Tornado is Nginx. It's a great tool for this. When I have this uh, or oldest example for this, I need to set any archive using you call it for example. This archive is archive called python.config, and I use this is it's very similar JSON. And here I set the servers, and I don't need more using this in this time. And I can use a lot of URLs without this command. And this command is just Python 3 and balancer.py, for example. And it is working. And it is working. And that is, thank you. This is all in my name is any social networks and in my website. And thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Wow, I fit all that into 10 minutes. Should have got you in for a 30-minute talk.
Because I'm nervous.
Grand. And I think it was like I should be keeping an eye on the schedule. Yeah, you're doing grand. We're on time. I'm the one who keeps talking, going over time. So, next up we have is it Ajinkya? Is that how we pronounce your name? You're on mute at the moment. All right. So, if you can, I'll leave the floor to you so you can share your screen there, and we'll let you know if you can see it or not.
Let me know if you can see my screen.
We can see your screen. Okay, I'll leave you to it.
Basically, this is my research project I'm currently working on. This is neural network, optimizing neural network using genetic algorithms. About myself, I am a postgraduate student at NUI Galway, and I have 3+ years of IT experience. I was working in India, and now I'm doing my master's here in artificial intelligence. I'm working with my supervisor, Dr. Finlay Smith. He is a PhD holder in similar genetic algorithm from Edinburgh University. So as we all know, like neural networks are vastly used in computer vision, natural language processing, and all other aspects of every application. But training and optimizing neural network is still a research area, because it costs computer resources as well as the time taken to optimize the neural network is training a neural network is about a week or so. So if you want to train a neural network for any simple computer vision problem, it takes weeks to just train neural network. And neural network accuracy completely depends upon the initial range values or the weights which you assign to each neurons in your hidden layers. Here we have a three layers: input layer, hidden layer, and output layer. But if you have a specialized task, or like a major task in computer vision, then there could be n number of hidden layers, and you might need to optimize every uh, weight for every node in different hidden layers. So it is a vast area to optimize a neural network. Basically, problem with neural network is you cannot find a global minimum or global maximum. So if you want to increase the accuracy of your neural network, you have to find a global maximum or global minimum depending upon your task. But as you go on training your neural network, there could be a possibility that your neural network would land up in your local minima and local maxima, and it will hamper the total performance of your neural network and underlying applications as well. Moreover, there is another problem is generalization, because neural networks are completely trained on the underlying data which you are giving as a input, and if your neural network is not able to generalize the problem solution, then you could then there is a problem. There is a problem. If you go, let's consider a problem wherein autonomous cars are built, but the data which is being used for the autonomous car is not a generalized data. So your autonomous car could land up in certain situations where it is not generalizing and it is not helpful. So in order to generalize, there is a we use algorithm which is called as backpropagation algorithm. And backpropagation algorithm does not guarantee a global minimum or global maximum. So I came with the idea. I discussed with my supervisor. I came with the idea why we are going with a backpropagation algorithm, wherein we have to give back the error whatever we are getting during our training and giving it back to the hidden layers. Can we go with the genetic algorithm that we can initially start off with the raw solutions of weights, and then assess the solution uh, at each generation, so that we could get a generalized solution for given problem, and we will remove the dependency of underlying data. So there are phases of genetic algorithm. Basically those are initializing your initial population, fitness, determine the fitness of your population, selection of individuals for the next generation, performing crossover and then mutation, and then again uh, evaluating fitness of each individual in that generation. If our let's consider in neural network, there is a criteria of neural network acceptance, that is near your accuracy should be more than 98%. So if your accuracy is 98%, then that could be considered as a best neural network for your problem. So optimizing neural network, there are two possibilities in order to optimize a neural network. First one is structure of your network, and second one is the weight. As a part of my thesis work, I'm working on neural network weight optimization, because there has been already many research done on the structure optimization. Everyone knows about that auto ML. uh, that is already available. But the weight optimization is the part which is we are which we are trying to think if that works as a secondary approach for the backpropagation algorithm, and if we can replace the backpropagation algorithm with the genetic algorithm. For this specific task, we are using a deep library, which is a distributed evolutionary algorithm in a Python. It is an open source library, and it is a rapid prototyping and testing library for the genetic algorithm, specifically for the genetic algorithm. It works with a predefined genetic algorithm, and it takes the Python native data type as its solutions, and it works on these data types and underlying objects. Moreover, this before this, people, researchers and people used to work with the Java and C libraries. But with the advancement in the parallelization in the Python, and which is being implemented in this library is famously used, and underlying infrastructure or underlying computing resource utilization has been optimized and reduced using this distributed library. And this library does not only works with the genetic evolutionary algorithm, it also works well with the genetic programming. If we have some genetic programming problem, we can use this library as well. I just want to show my initial how to write this work with this deep library. Basically this library gives you a toolbox, and there are two main types with the library. First one is a creator, and second one is a toolbox. Creator creates the individuals which you need to create, or solution which you want to create, and you can create using your depending upon your problem and your fitness function. Secondly, it gives you a toolbox which is used for defining your type of your individuals, population size, type of your population. If your population, you want to specify the population in the form of list, you can give it in the list or set or tuples based on your problem solution and what you are trying to achieve using this deep library. Second main thing is this deep library already have some functions and objects already created in order to for mutation, evaluation, and selection functions, which you don't have to really care about. If you know genetic algorithm, there are certain number of algorithms which are already pre-implemented in this library, and if you have some requirement, you can fork this library and you can tweak the code and work with the library. And here is my result. Basically, the starting accuracy for each individual was 0.5, which is 50%. And in neural network, it's like your neural network is worthless. But over the 100 generation, my neural network got improved and it reached to some 72% of accuracy. So that means, and this is for the 100 generation, wherein if we could have gone with the backpropagation algorithm, it would have taken 200 back and forth iterations. So basically, this library, this genetic algorithm concept with neural network is reducing your computing resources as well as the time to train your neural network based on your problem. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
It's great. Thank you so much to all our speakers for speaking this evening. I think it's only just the two of our speakers left. I think panelists. So I think I only see a question here in the chat. I can't seem to get Q&A working for some reason. There's no way for inputting questions. So someone asked, I think this is aimed at Rigel. Have you used any other Python mobile frameworks? I'm aware of Beware, but my concern for both Kivy and Beware is that they're quite niche and might be hard to get support compared to less, I think it's known frameworks.
Oh, lovely question, actually. Thank you so much, Dee, for asking it. And no, I wish I had been in a demo group back in my youth. You see, the thing with that is that you know, in the 90s and the 80s, there was almost no information available if you wanted to start programming. I really would have loved to start assembly programming, for example, but it was very difficult to get started. You know, I didn't know how to get an assembler. Today, it seems like the problem is exactly the opposite. There's so many ways to start, so much information. If you want to build, you know, your own game, you have so many frameworks to do that. And the problem is that with so much choice, there is a lot of difficulties in, you know, in trying to commit to one or the other. So going to your question, yeah, I've seen actually PyB. It's a project by Russell Keith McGee, who is a very well-known Django developer. He worked on that project for many years, and I have a lot of respect for him. The way that PyB works, to my understanding, I might be getting this wrong, is that where Kivy uses Python for Android, and what it does, it embeds a Python interpreter inside an APK, essentially, and then it marshals it using Java, essentially. So you have a full-blown Python interpreter, but that's the native CPython interpreter. What happens with PyB is different, and it's actually quite genius in a certain way, and it's incredible that his team made this work. So it takes the Python code that you write, it translates it to, obviously, when Python is byte compiled, it's interpreted, but it produces byte code. It will take that Python byte code, translate it to the target byte code. So in the case of the JVM, in the case of Dalvik, in this case, it will translate it to Dalvik, the bytecode, and it will run it on Android devices. I don't know what happens exactly with other targets, but to my understanding, that's how it works. The PyB is a much more recent project, so it might be limited in features compared to Kivy. You're right in the sense that there are niche products. The user community isn't very vast or well known, but Kivy has a lot of existing and mature projects. So, and there's an active community, and there's a lot of add-ons and plugins that you can use. So compared to PyB, you might get a little bit more in terms of what it provides out of the box. PyBee is certainly a project that to keep track of, because if they manage to do all the things that they're planning to do, it will really put back Python in a premier spot, I think, compared to languages even like JavaScript, in my opinion. Thanks for the question. It was really, really good.
Cool. So, anyone else, any questions? Any speakers, any questions amongst yourselves? Yeah, I don't see anyone typing on the chat. I suppose that means, yeah, that means we can actually wrap up the event early, which is yay to a lot of people who want to have dinner, right? Oh, hang on. There's a question for you, Ajinkya. Are there any resources we could look on simple training neural networks by Sandra?
Yeah, there is a free course. If you want to go with the course, there is a free course available by Andrew Young on YouTube. And if you want to do it by old fashioned, there is a book called Deep Learning with Python. You can go along with the book and code along with the as you proceed, like as you progress ahead. Deep Learning with Python. I'll just type in here.
Cool.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah. So I suppose I'll get the slides of the speakers and I'll post them up on CryptPad and share them on I'll send a message to everyone after the event as well. So any more questions? Yeah. Nope. Okay. So what I'll do is I will wrap up this this webinar. Thank you everyone. I know Natalia left early, so but thank you everyone, and thank you Rigel, because you actually moved around your calls to do this to do your talk. So thank you so much.
No worries. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
But yeah, thanks to everyone who helped and jumped on board so last minute to speak on this month. So next month, as I said, we have Naomi Freeman speaking with us. I will announce that meetup event right after this. And I'll also be editing this video, which I recorded, since this is not live streamed. Due to, you know, this is the worst that could happen. This is fine. So I'll be editing this and I'll be putting it up on, I'll create a PyLadies YouTube channel and I'll put it on Vimeo as well, just because I have an account with them. And if anyone else have any questions, just email me and I'll pass them on to the speakers. So thank you everyone, and we have about 10 minutes to spare, but that's great, 10-20 minutes, and hopefully we'll see you next time. And again, thanks to speakers, thanks to Python Iron for hosting, and then also Doublemaker for being our community partner. And thank you, Lay. Hello, Lay.
Thanks, Vicky.
So we'll hopefully we have the next couple of months kind of sorted, and we'll have a surprise or two. But anyway,
yeah. Hopefully we can figure out the Q&A next time.
Right, so goodbye everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks
Bye-bye.
again.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
for speaking.